The Republic of Haiti is one of the former colonies of France, which gained independence in 1804 during the successful Haitian Revolution and became the second independent state in America and the first republic led by black people. However, with the arrival of independence, the economic conditions in the country did not improve. Haiti remained one of the poorest and most unstable countries in the world, constantly suffering from hunger, natural disasters, and government coups. Additionally, a cruel dictator with his ambitions, François Duvalier, came to power. He was also known as Papa Doc and belonged to a group of dictators who suffered from mental disorders. Once, he ordered the extermination of all black dogs in the country because he believed that one of his enemies had transformed into a two-legged creature and was plotting against him. However, this did not prevent him from becoming one of the most ruthless dictators who emptied the treasury, tortured and executed over 50,000 people, and ruled for 15 years until the end of his life. In this video, we will discuss the dictator François Duvalier. Welcome to the Hustler channel, and enjoy watching. Duvalier began his dictatorial path as a regular doctor. However, over time, the intelligent doctor, whom his family was so proud of, suddenly abandoned medicine and immersed himself in high politics. In 1946, a dark-skinned president, Dumarce Estime, came to power in the country. Previously, such high positions were held only by mulattoes, and he initially appointed Duvalier as Deputy Minister of Labor, and later gave him the portfolio of Minister of Health. Over the next 10 years, the country experienced political upheavals, which pushed Duvalier to the bottom. However, the subsequent events did not dampen his ambition. While hiding from the new authorities, he dreamed of wealth and unlimited power. And such an opportunity presented itself to him in 1956 after a political coup. Unexpectedly for many, he nominated himself as a candidate in the presidential elections. His opponents, the favorites of the race, Professor Daniel Fignolet and lawyer Clement Jumel, did not take Duvalier seriously, mocking the self-assurance of the young upstart. However, the doctor should not have been underestimated. He did not sit idly by, devoting all his energy to organizing disorder. Duvalier set his supporters the task of instilling panic among citizens. Fignolet became the president, but he did not stay in power for long. He was arrested on the 20th day of his rule. Outraged supporters of Fignolet took to the streets, but the military forces of Colonel Cabral met the demonstrators with gunfire. 1,000 people were killed. To hide this mass murder from the global community, the wounded were buried together with the dead. The protests were brutally suppressed, and new elections were announced. They were conducted without voter registration, and the only candidate allowed to campaign by the military was Duvalier. He became the next president of Haiti, receiving the blessing of Washington, $400,000, and later another $7 million, the majority of which he spent on personal needs. Soon after coming to power, the new president established a dictatorship. The newly minted leader began tightening the screws. Opponents were shot and imprisoned. Public organizations and parties were banned in the country. Except for the presidential party, liberal newspapers were closed, and the assets of disloyal businessmen were nationalized. The Catholic Church, which was constantly persecuted, was forced to change its worship services. The prayer, Our Father, was directed not to God, but personally to the leader of Haiti. However, despite this, the main religion of Haiti became the voodoo cult. Knowing that Haitians like to come up with nicknames for their presidents, Duvalier called himself Papa Doc, and later adopted titles such as the Unquestionable Leader of the Revolution, Apostle of National Unity, Benefactor of the Poor, and many others. However, the nickname Papa Doc stuck the most. He also didn't forget to declare himself the embodiment of one of the darkest Loas in the voodoo pantheon, the Lord of the Cemetery. A new national flag appeared in the country with colors corresponding to voodoo symbolism. Not trusting the army too much, Papa Doc organized his own. The main support for the new dictator became the militarized squads of semi-criminal individuals called Tonton Macoutes. In Haitian Creole, Tonton Macoutes translates to evil person who steals children at night and eats them in a cave. They did not receive money from the budget but survived by robbing the local population. They were led by voodoo sorcerers who terrified illiterate locals. They wore white robes and sunglasses to hide their eyes. They would skin people, drown them, burn them alive, and beat them with stones. Haitians told each other stories that Tonton Macoutes could not be bribed or killed because they were zombies who only obeyed Duvalier. Each morning, Duvalier's day began with a meeting with the chief of the secret police, who informed him about dissenters deserving punishment. As a result, the president would sign lists every day of those who needed to be arrested and sentenced to death. Under the dictator, a whole system of prisons and concentration camps emerged, where suspected disloyal individuals were held. The most dangerous enemies awaited a special prison beneath the presidential palace. The arsenal of torture methods used there would have been envied in medieval times. In addition to ancient methods, the latest technological achievements were also present. The local press regularly published photo reports with severed heads and torn-apart bodies. Meanwhile, the country's economy was rapidly declining. Only 10% of the population was literate, while the rest could neither read nor write. Duvalier and his family filled their pockets with millions of dollars, which they later transferred to Swiss banks. At the same time, Haitians were dying of hunger and selling their children into slavery, hoping that at least there their owners would feed them. Duvalier particularly enriched himself through blood sales. The locals were required to donate blood, which was then sold in the United States. Washington received up to 2,500 liters twice a month. The money from this also ended up in the dictator's pockets. The president's personal treasury became the so-called presidential fund, where millions of dollars were deposited. Almost everything was subject to taxation, including matches and a pension tax. The West closely monitored what was happening in the island nation. Americans saw that what was happening in Haiti was not quite democracy, but they believed that although Duvalier behaved inappropriately, at least he would be pro-American in Washington. Moreover, they decided that an established dictatorship was better than instability in Haiti and continued to pour millions of dollars into the island state, which smoothly settled in the pockets of Duvalier and his entourage. Crushing a coup in 1958, the dictator seized extraordinary powers and unleashed mass terror with the help of the Tonton Macoutes. During the dictator's rule, approximately 50,000 people were executed in the country, and the total number of emigrants from the country exceeded 300,000. 3 years later, he dissolved the parliament. In the elections, voters were offered only one candidate named Duvalier for the country's top position. Voters were allowed to use an unlimited number of ballots, and after the vote count, it was announced that the Haitians had voluntarily elected him for a new term. President John F. Kennedy became the only occupant of the White House to refuse financial aid to Haiti. In response, the enraged Duvalier created a voodoo doll of the American leader and performed occult rituals on it. Publicly, while puncturing the doll with a needle, he promised a dreadful death to the American leader. Many saw this as a sarcastic gesture, but 6 weeks later, Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. Many Haitians believed that their leader was all-powerful and that he played a role in Kennedy's murder. Subsequent American presidents decided not to tempt fate and continued to pour large amounts of money into Haiti, which ended up in the pockets of Duvalier and his entourage. In order to avoid further hassle with elections, Duvalier held a referendum in 1964 to ask whether he should be recognized as president for life. The question, printed in capital letters, had only one correct answer: yes. Those who wanted to answer no had to write it by hand, which meant they would later become victims of death. In the future, François Duvalier hoped to become an emperor. However, in 1970, a rebellion broke out, which Papa Doc brutally suppressed with the help of the Americans. The uprising weakened the already ailing dictator. He had no choice but to appoint his 19-year-old son as his successor. Jean-Claude, nicknamed Baby Doc, took the parade in April 1971 in place of his father, and a few days later, the president's death was announced. According to local media reports, they placed the dictator's own book, Memoirs of a Leader, in his coffin. The next leader was his son, Jean-Claude Duvalier. He lived a lavish life, profiting from drug trafficking and spending his father's money. His wedding became the most expensive in Haitian history, costing a record-breaking $3 million. However, the son did not live up to his father's expectations. In 1986, he was ousted from power, and he and his family managed to escape to France on a BBC plane, taking $800 million with them. Most of this sum was later awarded to the former leader's ex-wife, Michelle Bennett, following their divorce in 2011. Penniless, Baby Doc returned to Haiti, where he was immediately arrested and thrown into prison. 3 years later, Jean-Claude Duvalier died of a heart attack, marking the end of the Duvalier dynasty's dictatorship. The nearly 30 years of rule by father and son inflicted irreparable damage to Haiti's economy. Papa Doc and his Baby Doc together turned Haiti into one of the poorest and most underdeveloped countries in the world, from which it still struggles to recover. And this video was prepared by the Hustler channel. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, watch other videos, and leave comments. This was Hustler. Until we meet again.